for watching Slice of SciFi. I'm Noah Richmond.
And I'm Daren Goldsvik.
We're talking about Overlord, which is the new horror movie.
Horror movie.
Yeah, it's really what happens when you take a war movie and you add in some supernatural elements. I guess I don't know if that's even quite the right term, but definitely stuff that you think of as horror.
Hardcore Frankenstein.
That's a good description.
Yeah.
Toss it together, you wind up with this film. It's a film that it really starts out very much like you're watching any modern World War II movie where there's a team that's being parachuted in under fire. They've got a mission ahead of them. All kinds of explosions and bodies blowing up around them. And the survivors manage to group together, try and band together to accomplish their mission of taking down a Nazi tower in order so that the Allies can land and can invade. But in the process of doing this, they come across a dark secret, medical experiment being performed by the Nazis.
Which is actually not far from the truth if you follow any of the crap that they did, you know?
Yeah,
but
follow history, sure.
Yeah, exactly. But of course they weren't quite like this, at least I hope not. But, you know, different movie.
Yeah. Yeah, so certainly my feeling about it is it definitely had some of that quality of like a classic pulp fiction, sort of like the old pulp novels that might have come out in the 1940s and you know, from around that era. Some of the comic books you might have read where, you know, the Captain America, the GIs taking on the Third Reich, and the Third Reich having, you know, kind of supermen,
except with a little decapitation mixed in.
Right. So as I say, it sort of has that feeling of a, you know, old pulp fiction, but then you mix it with like modern effects and gore and horror, and it was definitely, I thought, pretty visceral. At least for my expectations, I was thinking for something that, well, is produced by J.J. Abrams. It's aimed at a modern audience. I thought maybe there'd be some bloody scenes here and there, but there was definitely some. You know, this is definitely an R film. You know, this isn't one that you take the little kids to.
No, if anything, like even when I first saw the trailer, I was like, this is like a riff on Wolfenstein, the video game, or Call of Duty Zombies, which is a big fun game. And so that was my first, you know, feeling of it. But yeah, just when the movie started, it just felt just like a typical war film, you know.
Right.
Ideally, the protagonist being African American was an interesting choice, and I think that really added some levels of character development, and particularly in some of the scenes that they're in. And I thought my favorite part of the movie actually is the interaction between the soldiers, the relationships that they develop.
Right.
Because that's something that obviously in war movies you see and can really make a war movie endearing. Like, you know, when Band of Brothers TV show was great because it built on relationships. So, but, you know, in the guise of a very gory horror movie. So, but I think that's what kind of created that balance, you know. But when you just look at it from the optics of it, it's just having fun with it. It's a fun idea. I was able to enjoy it a little more. I was a little I wanted to see more, I guess, more Nazis blown up. You know, like playing video games. You know, in Wolfenstein, you get around and you get to all types of. But again, it's only a 2-hour movie.
So Wolfenstein, a popular video game where.
Yeah, I'm talking as if everyone knows what that is. Correct? You know.
Right, popular video game where you're soldiers going in and fighting Nazis, except that the Nazis have. What, they're werewolves?
Super soldier. Well, that's what the movie was. They have a super soldier, and they're experimenting on soldiers to make them into these, like, super soldiers, you know, and they're, you know, without thought, and they're just, you know, flipping amazingly dumb. But again, it's just that idea that you can, this 1,000 years, you know,
1,000-Year Reich.
Reich, you know, and built on this idea of super soldiers. You know, it's kind of like it's a cool concept of being crazy, you know. And I think this movie sets that stuff up. I mean, who knows? You might see some sequels in the future because it's such a crazy idea, you know.
Yeah, it certainly felt like it could be.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure if this does halfway well, it will be the first of more. I guess one question I have, in terms of story, if you compare it to Wolfenstein, do you think that there's any, how comparable are they? Does one do story better than the other?
Oh, well, I mean, I'm not going to give that much credit to Wolfenstein because the story is safe. Basically, you land, you destroy and stop what's being done, you know, which is a scientist experimenting on innocent soldiers. And so that's kind of what this is in a nutshell. It's just that there wasn't enough of that, you know what I mean? It was like the setup was great. Getting to that point B was great. And then getting to the point where you get satisfaction of watching these soldiers who have been put in these really bad positions to take their, you know, anger and fury on them.
And taking on the Nazis.
Yeah, I wanted more of that, you know, those kind of. And so, again, I know that, you know, these are really kind of interesting whole take on the whole genre, you know. I mean, these kind of movies aren't done very often, you know. I know the one that came out from import was the Frozen Nazis. I don't remember the name of that.
Yeah, Dead Snow, I believe.
Yeah, and I never saw that, but again, the idea is kind of, you know, because the whole image of a swastika is so horrific, and what it does to people, it makes you kind of, you know, angry. And so that's kind of when I felt myself watching this. I was like, I want to see them different creative ways they can end these grotesque soldiers that are, you know, trying to kill. And I just, that's what I wanted, a little more of that. I know that sounds really bad and horrific, but you know, but I still, I was enjoying it. I felt like I was watching a video game right in front of me. That's what it kind of felt like. And so I think if you're a fan of those games, you probably will like this. And that's a big takeaway for me, you know. I don't know that it's going to be for everyone, you know, if you're bothered by scenes that are really...
the gore is intense. But really, that's all I have to say about it. Is I thought that as a piece of pulp fiction, it was actually pretty solid. You know, I didn't find myself rolling my eyes too much. I didn't have any problem with the characterizations too much, and you know, I thought it flowed pretty well. So for me, it was, you know, it was a solid piece of pulp fiction. I did think, for me, the goriness was a little much in terms of my just being able to enjoy it, because it definitely had some like real war scene.
Those were
real war scenes that it's like, okay, well, this is a piece of pulp fiction, and it's hard to look at that and just sort of.
Those were the hard scenes to watch.
You know, just be having fun with it. But I thought it was well constructed. I thought it did what it did well, and well, you know, I think if the concept appeals to you, I would think that this is a film that would appeal to you.
I kind of had fun with, like I did with Inglourious Bastards, you know, with the over the top, smash a Nazi kind of thing, you know. And so, but it's just, again, I can see them trying to take this concept, and maybe not in that time period, but another time period where you're manipulating human tissue and making them something it, you know, is not meant to be. So, but yeah, it was a fun movie. I think it's surprising they didn't try to release it during the Halloween season.
That I definitely had that reaction of why are we seeing this 2 weeks after Halloween?
Yeah, it's just
it would have been a good Halloween movie.
Yeah, and Overlord, that whole title just sounds kind of, you know.
Right. Well, I think that's our thoughts on Overlord, and thanks for watching Slice of SciFi.
See you.